Absolutely. Yeah. My notes out here. Well, thank you, Gary. I want to thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today. I've been through lectures like this myself many times, and I know a lot of times they are more to be endured than enjoyed. So I promise you I will try to cover all these 10 tips very quickly and briefly, and then stay on the point. So I was telling Gary, I decided not to use any kind of PowerPoint presentation. I know that we were talking about, I've probably seen 10,000 PowerPoint slides, and I can remember approximately 0 of them. So I want to try to just make these tips, this list, very short, and I'll give you a summary. And now, instead of a PowerPoint, what I have done is I've given everybody here a little flash drive. And on that flash drive, you'll find a list of the 10 tips I'm going to talk about today and a short summary of each. And you'll also find a second document, which I'll tell you that relates to the first tip I'm going to give you, which I'll talk about in just a minute. The topic today is 10 ways to try to keep your business, 10 tips on keeping your business from getting sued and to protect them from lawsuits. To give you a little bit of background on what I do, about 90% of my clients are small businesses. And unlike giant corporations that need constant representation, typically my clients come to me when they've already had a problem. So in 20 years of doing this, I've kind of noticed the same theme sort of coming up over and over and over. The honest fact is, if I'm going to be completely honest, you can't keep yourself from getting sued. I mean, the more successful you are, in fact, the more likely you are to at some point be sued. But my hope is with these 10 tips, it will accomplish 3 things. A, it will make your chances of being sued go way down. Second, if you are sued, it will make your chances of success go way up. And then in a worst case scenario, if you are sued and you do lose, then this will protect your assets and keep your losses very minimal. So that's sort of the goal behind these 10 tips. So let's start with tip number 1. By far the most important. Tip number 1 is incorporate. I cannot stress this enough. You have to incorporate in some way. Owning a business solely in your own name or as a DBA is a recipe for disaster. The main 3 things people do is form a corporation, which is an S Corp or a C Corp, an LLC or an LLP. It should be your very first step. It will set up a solid wall between your personal assets and the assets of the business. If you run the business out of just under your own name, you run the risk of getting cleaned out, your bank accounts, losing your house, your car, everything you own. So as far as which business structure to choose, that completely depends upon your business. Okay, I will give you a very general rule of thumb though, which is LLCs are generally the preferred type of structure for at least 90% of businesses. I would say it's what I advise to my clients well over 90% of the time is an LLC. Now, incorporating as a straight S Corp or a C Corp is appropriate if you have a very large business with a formal board of directors and that type of thing. If you have a small business where you have a group of equal partners, then an LLP may be appropriate, but like I said, LLC is by far the most common preferred entity. Best thing to do is just simply get the advice when you go to start the business of an experienced attorney, accountant, somebody like that, and they can help you decide what may be best for you. Sure.
If your company is ABC and you change to ABC LLC, you have to let everybody know that you're an LLC now?
Yes. In fact, that's one thing that I'll talk about that next. When you go to form your LLC or LLP, whatever it is extremely easy to do that. It's not a complicated process. And the other document that's on that flash drive I gave you is an ebook that I have on my website, which is a step-by-step guide to forming the LLC or LLP, corporation, whatever it is. It includes all the forms. It includes all the addresses, the fees that you have to pay, everything is on there. Now, once you do form it, yes, it is very important that you advertise the fact you are operating under that LLP or that LLC. You want to keep everything completely separate. You want to keep your bank account separate. You want to make sure that name features prominently on all of your business information. Every contract, every document you sign, make sure you sign it with and it stresses that this is your name as a representative of the LLP. Those are the steps you want to take to make certain that there's no chance of what's called piercing the veil. In other words, and there's an article about that on the website too. If you commingle your funds between your personal funds and your LLP, then it's possible they can still come after you individually. So you want to make sure you do that. But yes.
I have a question. Now, according to what I read, you have to separate your personal account from your business if you are forming an LLC.
Right. Absolutely.
Now, if you are using your house as your home address, will that also be a problem? You
mean as your work address? If you're you're working out of your home?
Yeah, your company address as your home.
Possibly, if the home is an asset of the corporation. I would probably not list your home as an asset of the corporation. In fact, I'll talk about what I would recommend you do with the home in that case. However, you can, just because you claim a portion of your home on your taxes as your business, you should be fine. But I would not have the home owned by the LLP or the LLC.
Excuse me a second, I should have said this. You can hold your questions. We appreciate getting them. We're going to have a Q&A after the presentation, so we can get through everything. Thank you.
Sure. All right. That's the first tip, is incorporate. That is what will the most effective way to guard your personal assets. So now let's talk about the second tip, which is buying insurance. Insurance will protect your business assets. There are many different types of policies, again, depending upon the type of business you run. There's commercial liability policies. You'd want to get car insurance on a company vehicle. There's errors and omissions policies. If you have a board of directors, there's directors and officers insurance. There's many kind of things, though. What you want to do is just sit down with an insurance agent that you trust, talk about the coverage that would be best for your particular business, and no matter what kind you need, though, I always recommend to my clients that they get absolutely as much coverage as they can afford. At least a policy of $1 million, if not much greater than that. Nobody likes to pay insurance premiums, I understand, but I can give you example after example of clients and companies that would have been wiped out if they did not have good insurance coverage. So the great thing about insurance coverage also is that if you do get sued, the insurance typically pays for the attorney. They pay the judgment if you happen to lose that case. And on top of that, the premiums are often tax deductible. So that's the second tip. Buy insurance. That will protect your business assets. Now, this is the third tip here is a little bit, may not be for everybody, but it goes a little bit to your point, sir, which is the third tip is consider transferring assets to an uninterested party. If you are in a business that carries a very high risk of lawsuits, it may be wise as the owner to consider transferring key assets such as your house, your investment portfolio, things like that, into the name of a spouse or other trusted family member that's not involved in the business. And that's the key. They have to not be involved in the business in any way. As long as you're not doing that after you've already been sued or doing it just for purposes of fraud, these transactions will hold up and they will give you one more layer of protection. But remember, you want to follow all legal formalities when you do that. You want to, if you are transferring your house, you want to file a quitclaim deed in the clerk's office. If you're transferring personal property, such as a car, you want to do a bill of sale. Sign it before a notary, just like you would if you were transferring it to a total stranger. If you are transferring it to someone other than your spouse, then I would recommend you make sure that person's will is changed so that that asset goes back to you in the event of their death. Like I said, though, one's a little tricky, and you want to consider this very carefully. It may not be for everybody, and because you have to remember you are, in fact, doing a completely solid legal transfer. And if you do go through a divorce, then you are not only losing your spouse, you are probably also homeless at that point. So, fourth, Keep your business contracts simple and use disclaimers and other terms in there that protect you. Okay, this is sort of a inside secret that a lot of lawyers won't tell you, and that is that simple contracts written in very easily understandable terms are far more likely to be enforced than contracts that contain a lot of confusing legalese. The more you stray from just plain, simple, straightforward language, the more likely it is that a judge will find that that contract is open to multiple interpretations. Now, disclaimers are extremely effective. Disclaimers such as limitations on liability, warranty disclaimers, things like that can offer very valuable protection. They should be a standard practice in every single one of your business contracts. One thing I will tell you about disclaimers, when you do put them in a contract though, make sure they are in bold type and in all caps, and they're not just buried down in the boilerplate language or in the fine print, because you don't want to give the other side any room to argue that they didn't notice it when they signed the contract. If it's in bold and it's set out there right, a judge will enforce it. There's no doubt. Now, the most common argument I see when people come in and they want to either enforce a contract or they're being sued is that the other side claims that there was some other understanding between the parties outside the terms of that contract, that they had some other agreement in place. People make that claim all the time. So to combat that, there are two other terms you want in every contract, okay? The first is language that states that this is the complete agreement between the parties and all other agreements are merged into this document, okay? The second term you want to have in every single written contract is that this contract cannot be changed except in writing signed by both parties. If you have those two terms in your contract, that will destroy any argument the other side has that there is any other agreement outside the terms of the written contract. Any skilled corporate attorney should be able to quickly draft a contract for you or at least review any contract for you to make certain that they are enforceable and they contain every possible disclaimer and language that will provide you with the maximum possible legal protection. So that's number 4. Keep contracts simple, use disclaimers and the terms that will protect you. Number 5 is obvious, but I like to say it anyway, and that is always be mindful to engage in good business practices. And what that simply means is don't take shortcuts on anything. Be smart, be mindful of everything you say and do, be honest. Successful entrepreneurs you will find routinely avoid making any public announcements that may be controversial. They avoid doing business with companies that may be seen as disreputable. This also means, which is a temptation at least for me, I don't know about for you, a great temptation, it also means resisting the urge to make slanderous or negative statements about other people or other businesses. No matter how well deserved those may be. You need to be extremely careful about that. Be extremely careful not to do business with companies that you suspect may engage in unscrupulous business practices. And the danger is not, I mean, obviously you think, well, I'm not going to do anything wrong. And the danger is not that they'll rub off on you. The danger is that if they take a hit, your company's name may be linked to them in the fallout. So related to that, finally on this point, if you do make a commitment to somebody or a client or a customer, honor it and make sure that that customer satisfaction is your highest priority. Even if it costs you money in the short term to do that. The reality is that people understand mistakes can happen. When things go wrong, people are less likely to get adversarial if they feel like you've been honest with them, if they feel like they've enjoyed working with you, doing business with you. So make it a priority to engage in good business practices. Number 6, very important again, put all of your agreements in writing. I have a lot of people that tell me, hey, I'm old-fashioned. I do business on a handshake. That is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. All right. making sure your agreements are in writing is one of the best ways to avoid litigation. The time and expense that it takes to write up an agreement is nothing compared to a week of litigation, not much less years of litigation, which is more typical. So having the rights and responsibilities of each party put in writing will put you in a far stronger position if you do in fact get sued. I would recommend that you have an attorney, if not draft, at least review every single contract that you use, at least a standard contract that you use in your business. And the reason is this, because I cannot tell you the number of times that somebody has come in my office and they've said, I want to enforce this contract, and I read it, and the first thing out of my mouth is, this was not written by a lawyer, was it? I mean, there are terms missing, there are things ambiguous. Enforcement is almost impossible if a contract is not well written. So the cost of hiring an attorney to draft or review a contract is negligible compared to the headache involved with pursuing a claim. Trust me on this. Final thing I'll say about this point. If you have a client or a customer that balks at putting something in writing, there is a 100% chance you do not want to do business with that person. That's tip number 6. Do not rely just on oral agreements. Put everything in writing. And if you Google an article I wrote for Savannah Morning News recently about oral contracts, you'll see there are tips you can do, even if something is oral, to protect yourself. Send a follow-up email, letter. This is just to confirm our agreement. Things like that. Just make sure in some way everything's in writing, everything you do. All right. Number 7 is a pain, but the number 7 tip is this. Read, understand, and follow the law applicable to your business. This can be a hassle, but I strongly recommend that you research and read every single law and regulation that relates to your business. Chances are you are going to be shocked at some of the things that you are legally required to do. While the number of laws and regulations that apply to your business, can be intimidating, making certain that your business is compliant with the law is an extremely powerful deterrent to ever being sued. You can consult with an attorney. You can just take the time simply and invest the time to research and review any state, local, federal laws that apply to your business. Once you do that, obviously as part of that, you want to make sure you've obtained and filed all necessary permits, licenses, fees, taxes, registrations, all those things. But I'm telling you now, if you don't take that time to research and know all of the laws and regulations relating to your business, then there is a good chance you may violate one of them. And ignorance, as we all know, is no excuse. So take that time, invest that time at the beginning, and keep up on it. Look for most areas of law, and most businesses have things on the internet that keep up with the current state of the law, and review those. Make it a practice to review those constantly. All right, number 8, almost done. Number 8 tip is communicate. And what I mean is, if you have somebody that you know is upset with you or is upset with your business, do not ignore it. Reach out to people that you know are upset. Here is a universal truth that I have gleaned from 20 years of practicing corporate law. Happy people don't sue. So you would be shocked, literally shocked, at the number of lawsuits that get started because of nothing more than hurt feelings. Somebody just being pissed off with somebody else and that I'm gonna sue. It happens all the time. If you know somebody is upset with you, call them. Stop by and just have a chat with them. Most importantly, when you do talk to them, be very friendly. Don't let them get you upset or angry. I am telling you, nothing is as effective as a friendly, honest conversation to nip a problem in the bud and lead to an amicable resolution of issues. It's not easy to do, but it's very important. If you've reached the point where you're already in a lawsuit, that's different. If you've been sued, all communication should end immediately at that point, and all communication at that point should go through an attorney. But if it hasn't reached that point, reach out to the people immediately. Anytime you fail to take immediate action to nip something like that in the bud, you run the risk of being sued. So Number 9 tip. As Gary was saying, it's very important that you hire and develop a relationship with a skilled business attorney. Now, I know, here's the attorney telling you that you need an attorney. Fair enough, but facts are facts. If you forge a relationship with a skilled attorney with whom you feel comfortable, he or she can be a valuable daily source of assistance and peace of mind. And as Emily in my office back there could tell you, we do have clients we talk to every day, and it's fine. Attorneys can help you with all of those things we just talked about. They can review contracts, they can negotiate with upset customers, they can make sure your business is legally compliant, they can help you collect debts, deal with tax issues, 1,000 other little things that come up all the time. And the good news is that most attorneys are not nearly as expensive as you might fear they are. But if you are in business for yourself, then having a skilled attorney on your side can be a valuable source of protection. And now, the final tip, tip number 10, which I have as number 10, but could just as easily be number 1, which is this: avoid crazy people. It never ceases to amaze me when a client comes in and they've been sued, and the first thing they say is, "I knew it! I knew from the second I met this person they were going to be trouble." Well, guess what? You are not required to do business with every person that contacts you. Always trust your gut instinct. All clients and customers are not good clients and customers. If a prospective client or customer comes in and they are irrational, rude, highly eccentric, or even if they just have a reputation for treating people unfairly, that person is likely to be trouble for you down the road, and it is best to avoid them. And you don't have to be mean about it. You can be very polite. Even just saying something like, "Man, I so wish I could help you, but I am completely overbooked right now. This really sounds like an issue. You need immediate assistance." And then what you can do? Easy. Refer them to your biggest competitor. Problem solved. So that is my top 10 list of ways to protect your business from lawsuits. I hope it was helpful. Like I said, the entire list is on the flash drive I gave you. Thank you again for the invitation. I'm happy to take any questions about these matters. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.